These are the conversation starters, the catalysts, and the leaders that move the needle of fashion and beauty in the world. Our creative faces of Haiti are Payola Matt, Ouiji Theodore, Vinny Etienne, Praje Oscar, Rajni Jacques, Sandrine Charles, Aube Jolicoeur, and Fabrice Tordieu. This panel is moderated by Maritza Boudoir. These are your creative faces of Haiti.
What an amazing video you guys have just seen of beautiful Haitian creatives that are trailblazers in the fashion and beauty industry. If you did not know who they are, make sure you get to know who they are, because if you are looking into getting some inspirations to start a career in fashion and beauty, I guarantee you one of these beautiful people, you will have to knock on their doors. So get to know who they are. And I'm excited to have this conversation, this much needed dialogue. You guys don't understand. For many years, as Haitians, we've thought of professionals to be doctors, lawyers, engineers. Now that has changed, that has shifted, and Ayiti Community Trust is the leader in jumpstarting this conversation on Haitian creatives that are stylists, publicists, designers, fashion directors, you name it. We are resilient people, and right now, you're going to get to be part of a dialogue about Haitian creatives, Haitians that are killing it in the fashion and beauty industry. Let's go. I would like to ask Praje how your Haitian heritage has been able to shape your design.
I mean, I guess it goes along with everything that we all been saying is representation. Even though as a boy in Haiti, fashion was always this escape thing. When I came to the US, it was a reality, but I had to fight for it. And even when I did get maybe not a seat at the table, but to stand by the door, you still had to fight to stay that space. So it's always been, who is this guy? And I learned that a little bit later in my fashion career, that I was just making clothes. That's how I call it. And then until one day I went back to Haiti after leaving since I was a kid, and literally came back. I was obsessed for weeks. And literally from there, kind of like everything kind of came back to like where you come from. That's kind of my current collection now. It's Daome. It's the story of Ezudi Danto going back home. For whatever reason we don't know yet. So from there, all these things starting to happen, and I had to ask myself a question: Who is this? Who is this brand? What is this project? When we see this dress, do we know it's project or is it a Dior or who it is? I had to find identity, and I realized in that process of becoming a mature designer, a mature person, I found that I was my country and my country was me, and there was no way I could go in this world. The moment that I opened my mouth, oh, you're that Black Haitian guy. So it kind of become this tag for me. And then I was like, you know what? We're going to make this the brand.
Well, Haiti has shaped everything I've done because I've always been very culturally attached to my country. I think that, when it came to like he was saying, in the morning of Sundays, like going to church, watching everybody getting dressed and doing all this, dressing nice, all this has had a tremendous effect on us. And I think my design is recognized, especially my colors. I talk about my country all the time because, when you come from Haiti, there's something that makes you not, you're Haitian. It doesn't matter where you live, what you do, like he's the Haitian guy. So yeah, we are very influenced by, the culture, the people, the colors, by everything from our country. So yeah, you can see it throughout my designs.
I would say that Haiti is at the forefront of maybe the most important aspects of my life. And I think about my childhood a lot growing up. I feel like my most vivid memories are from my childhood. And so with that said, I try to always connect. And I feel like there's such integrity and people who work with their hands and promoting that. And that was one of the first things I thought about when I launched FamJam. I thought about the Mashan. They're not given, often they're not given the respect they deserve. They work with their hands, they raise families, they're great entertainers, they're entrepreneurs, they're full of life. They provide so much color in Haitian culture. So I thought a lot about them because when you see the head wrap, it's not just about style, it's about function. So I thought, okay, so I want to pay homage to these women. So often, you know, I'll do things and I really want everything to be as authentic as possible. And one of my favorite things that I was able to do last year was sponsor my friend Viva's dance class. She's a dance instructor and she was teaching traditional Haitian dance classes in New York. And I thought, this is amazing because a young person in New York, and if they're curious about Haiti and their cultures, they need that opportunity. So I felt like these kinds of collaborations and always thinking about community, because that is what Haiti is about, and culture. You know, contrary to a lot of popular beliefs, I feel like I wouldn't be where I am without the community and the support. So I think about that a lot, and I think I owe all of that to Haiti and my Haitian heritage.
I started going to Haiti a lot more, spending a lot more time on the ground to really understand, you know, the things that, you know, growing up in a middle class family that, you know, maybe your parents or your family frowned, you know, or looked down upon in Haitian culture. Like, don't hang out with these guys, you know, these are the, you know, whatever it is you want to call it, my little word about, you know, so I had to explore that. So I had to tap into the roots of, you know, everything about Haitian culture and how it pertains to me and put that into the work, and everything about my Black American experience as well, whether it was that my mom didn't want me to hang out with the dude with the do-rags, like I born, da da da. And so I explored that and realized that, you know, all those elements were a bit of my experience, and putting that into the Brooklyn Circus, and it really became the circus that it was. So I was no longer afraid or ashamed to explore, you know, criminality in the Black community, and having a friend who spent that many years in prison and being able to explore the human side of that. So that's what that Criminal Minded, You've Been Blinded collection was about.
I guess for me, like, just having to always working hard, always making sure that I'm putting my best foot forward. And that's the advice that I would want to give to anyone who's listening. Because now the young people have people to look up to, you know, like we didn't have Haitians to really look up to in the field that we're in. But now the younger generation, I mean, it's giving me chills right now to even think of me being a role model to anyone. But just for me to be on this panel, that holds a lot of weight for me to know that a young Vinny who's probably 10 years old, who's you know, who don't know exactly what they want to do, they could easily Google me, easily Google Praji, Rajni, like any of us, Pierre Moss, Curbito, Sandrine. They could easily find references. Because when I was young at 18, wanting to be a designer, I only had, you know, the Tom Fords and the Ralph Lauren, and I can't relate to them. I mean, they didn't go to Utica, they didn't go to Gospel Crusade, they didn't go to a Pentecostal church, you know, they didn't live in the projects. So I couldn't relate to it. I just had to always look at it from the outside looking in, like, oh, that's a nice life, you know? But once I saw Pure Moss and Curbito doing his thing, and I was like, whoa, okay, that gave me the motivation. Then now to know that he's from Brooklyn and he's Haitian and all that other stuff, it gave me the motivation. So now my job now as a designer, as a person who loves to give back, is to motivate and hopefully be that example to any young person who is wanting to do anything in terms of creativity. Because again, if you want to be the president, go ahead. If you want to be a doctor, go ahead. But if you want to be a creative, go ahead as well.
I guess I would say to the traditional, like, intern everywhere, but build your community. I mean, Rajni is someone in my community. Weijie is someone in my community that over time, over the past like 13 years, has become a part of like my close circle. And the more I grow, and now with the council, being able to actually talk to everyone and invest in these conversations, because I was the only one in the room at these larger agencies. So I'm trying to keep myself above water while trying to pull my people in too. It's very difficult. But just be to network as much as possible, find your tribe. And then when you find your tribe, you find a wider network and it continues to expand. I would tell myself coming into the industry that you will find people that like are like, you know, more senior than you or across the table from you or younger than you, that will be your champions. So don't necessarily worry about, you know, the things I worry about now. I'm still at work, you know. There are people to kind of lift you up and continue to help you in any way. It just might not seem like it in the beginning. And now having like that opportunity to do so, like we're actively trying to reach back out to like people who tried to, you know, work with us before or collaborate. It's like, yeah, I couldn't do it while I was there, but like now that we have a platform, how can we like do bigger and better things for you? So the answer to that question is you'll find a way. Just stay vigilant. I think that the younger generation really does benefit from having social media and being able to reach out to like their idols or people that they respect. And I always say, if you email me more than once, I'll get back to you. I do 15-minute calls or Zooms with younger people as much as possible, as Sharifa Murdoch taught me to do that, just because I didn't really have that platform before.
I would just say be yourself. Like, I remember when I started modeling, I had to be myself because in the industry, they like you to be yourself and they love like personality. And if you don't have a personality, like find one. You have to work hard. Even though it looks so easy, you know, on the cover of magazine, not only that, I have been in like all these campaigns and billboards. It took a lot of hard work. And there's a lot of models that come into the industry and inspiring models, and they're not really ready to like handle what the industry brings at them. And I've had a lot of things thrown at me. So yeah, just like work hard and be yourself. And one more thing is like, my experience was I was so naive when I like made it. It's okay to be naive sometimes, but not too naive because people will like run over you. But I was naive to a point where like it made me be myself because I didn't know like who was who. One example, when I was like doing like Marc Jacobs and like this big stylist brand would style me, but she would be in her sweatpants, all sweaty, and I had no idea who this woman was. Like I said, I was very naive. I had no idea who anyone was. And like, so one time at backstage for this big show, Marnie, I believe, I saw her, she came backstage, she spoke to me, took my picture, and I was like, and I'm so blunt, I said the craziest things, like, I said something about, oh, that's how nice you are when you actually dress up, or something crazy like that. I said, but like, even though I said that, she wasn't offended, but I was being myself, and not knowing she was this woman was the one that was booking me with on everything. After I said that, I was being myself. I booked fragrant campaign contract with her. Like it was her that was like giving me all these jobs, and I had no idea who Katie Grant was. So and also like what I said about working hard, you have to like be ready to work hard. Even as a Black model, as a Haitian model, I had to work so hard. Like you have to work harder than any other model in the industry.
I think the question is what advice I would have to give, you know, young creatives coming up. And I learned this from someone who is sitting on this panel, who is a bona fide hustler, which is Sandrine. I have known Sandrine from exposure days. She's a hustler. And there's something to say about someone who kind of knows where their place is, even if they're not there at the time. And they know the steps that they need to take. They know where to put themselves. They're genuine when doing so, but there is a spirit of hustling that I do think that some people don't have. And she is one that I definitely have seen the career trajectory and just the sheer passion in what she does that has led her to literally be where she is right now. And I think that sentiment as a whole, whether you want to do PR or you're a designer, makeup artist or whatever, it's that hustle. It's that I believe in myself, even if you don't. I believe in myself, even though my parents might not think that this is feasible for me. One thing I just wanted to add was, being a Haitian woman, I think, obviously, when I was growing up, there were so many derogatory terms when it came to being Haitian. Benny mentioned the Haitian booty scratcher. There was 1,000 different realms. I think the beauty about being Haitian is we are such a resilient group of people. We have been through tragedy upon tragedy, and somehow we are able to find a smile. Somehow we are able to find, glass is always half full as opposed to being half empty. And there's so much creativity. When I go back to Haiti, just on the walls, the art that's made out of nothing, the bracelets that are made out of forks and spoons, there is so much bona fide creativity that is there. And, I agree with Fabrice, it's a little harder to kind of push that out of the sand in Haiti, just because it's always about success and making money and bettering the next generation. But the creativity comes from, we had to make something out of nothing. And I think that's such a beauty about being Haitian, because we get pummeled so hard in the media. And when I look at my Haitian brothers and sisters, when I look at my family, whether they're doctors or whatever, we just have such a resilient soul. And that comes from the ancestors that were before us, that we fought. Remember, we were the first independent Black country. And I have to remind myself of the blood and the lineage that goes through us when I'm having a hard day at work, when something that I'm trying to do hasn't necessarily, been followed through or hasn't gone in a way that I want it to. And so that is the beauty of being Haitian. And, for me, I love being a Haitian woman, and, I hope I pass that on to my children.
I mean, and we are celebrating Jean-Jacques Dessalines and his resilience, and that he has passed on to us. I could not have said it any better. And as you said, as the theme of this evening is "Nous la Pirate," still we rise, and as Haitians, that's who we are, as peoples, as a community. You can see it through who we are, through our culture, through our food, to the way we communicate with one another. We are a resilient group, and I thank you, Ayiti Community Trust, for creating such a platform for us, men and women, to be able to have this conversation about our resiliency, about us pushing through an industry that has not always been kind to us. But hey, it has been said, if you are not represented, be the representation. And every single one of you guys here on this panel have done that. I am proud to all of your accomplishments, to you being Haitians. Continue pushing through. We know it's not always easy, but always dig deep to find that resiliency of Jean-Jacques Dessalines so that you can continue to rise. So it was beautiful having all of you here in creating a space for us to be seen. So Ayiti Community Trust, Nous la Pirate, still we rise. I think